look at you on social media. How you doing?
It's good. It's like that. It's good to check people out, isn't it? And find out about them. Yeah, which is now. I just want to confirm: is it Fedorovsky? Is that the way I say your last name? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
That's right. Yeah.
I just want to make sure I get it right. Where are you based?
So it's Fedorovsky, but with Fedoro.
Fed. Oh, so it's spelt wrong then on your screen.
ORO.
Ah,
so,
apologies.
Yeah, so it's got but the flyer was changed, so it's got
so the main place that matters is right.
yeah. So
okay.
It's just are we live yet?
No, and there's no one here yet, but we will be live in just a minute. So provided you're ready, we'll just jump straight into it. Just to clarify, I'll give you an intro. Are you happy if I just ask you a couple of questions as you're going to head you down certain directions? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't, I've got the topic, so I can talk in it and around it. So I've got a bit of a structure, and we could do an exercise at the end. But otherwise, I'm open to just being asked questions if you prefer to do it that way.
Oh, no. You just go ahead and talk. And if there's a question that I want to ask you at a certain time, I'll wait until the right time and then I'll ask it. But like in the last session that I did, I think I asked 3 questions in 40 minutes. So it's really more talking. Yeah. Okay, let's get this show on the road. We might just wait 1 or 2 minutes actually, because otherwise we'll be quite early if we jump in now. But I've had 3 people in a row. Have you had a chance to listen to any of the other speakers?
I just saw Katrina Ruth at the end, and there are a few things I want to watch next week, so I just didn't have any time yesterday. But yeah, I thought I'll leave it open. Is there anything you would recommend or anything you want me to?
Well, she's my online coach, so she's amazing. If you're into mindset and everything, which clearly you are, because that's kind of partly what you're talking about. Then I think you would.
I do.
Yeah, you would love her stuff. You probably also like the very first speaker on day 1. Her name was Jennifer Longmore.
Okay, yeah.
So she might be someone who you would align with as well. The guy last night was fantastic, but totally nothing to do with coaching or mindset. It was all about technology and humans and how it's called transhumanism.
Right, yeah.
And how at the moment we've got lots of wearable tech, but at some point it's going to be implantable tech, and what are all the ethical issues around that, and etc. So he really got you thinking. There's really good ones so far.
There's a lot of great topics. It'll be nice to check them out. Are you guys just going to give them to the
you should register. You should register for the ones that you want to see, because that way you'll get the Zoom link and you'll get the recording, so you can watch it anytime you want then.
Okay.
Yeah, apart from that, you can get inside the actual Facebook group, and we're live streaming everything in there. So that's what I'm about to do now. I am going to get us into that group. So just give me a minute. We always get in the group before we think we're in the group. So just so that you know if we're chatting or something.
Are you getting a little bit of a delay with my internet?
Yeah, but it should be all right. You get a delay anyway through Zoom live streaming, so all works out in the wash.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of phone calls lately because I've just found Zoom and online during those peak hours, there's just so many delays. So I've just gone to a lot of old school phone calls lately.
Yeah, sometimes that's best, isn't it? Okay, so I'm just writing in the title, transforming. Okay, so just spell your surname for me properly. Fedo.
Fedorovsky.
Okay, should be live in just a minute. Okay, I think we're all good to go. We've got a few people that have already put their comments in, just saying, hi, great to see you, looking out for your talk. So before we go any further, let me introduce to you the lovely Sasha Fedorovsky. And she is joining us from the comfort of your lounge room by the look of it. Is it your lounge room where you are right now, Sasha?
It's a bit of a home office lounge room. We've got a bit of a half office, half view,
beautiful.
half Netflix area.
Very. I'm glad to see you have all your priorities in one place. That's great. And firstly, a massive thank you. A massive thank you for agreeing to be part of the SuperHuman Summit. And I'm really fascinated by the title of your talk this morning, which is Transforming Stress into Superhuman Creativity. And the reason I'm fascinated is because if you think about it, particularly at this place and time and where we are in history and what's going on around us, I think you could argue that this is one of the most stressful environments and times that many of us have ever lived through and ever been in. So imagine if we could transmute, transform and shift all of that into productive, fascinating creativity. So I am really interested to listen to you and hear you share on this topic, and I will hand it over right to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Michelle. And thanks, guys, for organising this. I think it's a really timely topic and theme. And yes, there's a lot going on in the world. And I feel like the people who are doing the work, it's a time of producing creativity for them. But obviously, if you're sort of stuck in the human, in the physical element, in the current reality, it can be an extremely stressful time. So only time will tell what's going to come out of this, but it's really up to each person to actually choose which way they want to go, because we always have choices in life. And this is what I teach a lot of my clients, and this is what my version of mindset is about. It's always about having choices. So we can choose to stay stuck in the stress, in the current reality, in the material, on that vibration of, problem solving and trying to find solutions, or we can rise above it into the superhuman. It's a higher frequency. It's not the frequency of problems or solutions. It's a higher up-leveling frequency that goes into our superconscious mind, or, our soul, where creativity is found. So just before I go into the topic, I'm going to define what stress is, what being human is, and what creativity is, because semantics is great, but often it really confuses what we're trying to get across, especially with the media, with all the buzzwords. So let me just share with you my version, or the version that I'm going to be talking about when it comes to stress, being human, and what creativity really is. So, stress has been a buzzword in business and in corporates for probably the last 5 to 10 years. It's really massive. Stress is really the epidemic that we're suffering from, in first world countries these days. It's stress. And a lot of the, solutions to stress, or the modalities around dealing with stress, it's actually just treating the symptoms. It's getting away from stress. It's not getting to the core of what stress really is. So everyone would have experienced stress. It's a fear of the future. It's a feeling of overwhelm. You feel like you're in a frenzy. It can turn to frustration. It can turn to anger. It can turn to depression. So any psychological tension, we define as stress. And what we want to do is actually soothe that stress. We want to get away from it. We want to make ourselves feel better. And probably over the last month, since we came into this period, I've had a lot of questions about how do we improve, what are some good tips for mental health during isolation, during these times? And people are asking me how do they deal with stress? I haven't actually answered any of these questions publicly yet, because what they're actually asking for is not how do we improve our mental health, how, what is the creative outlook for this, but what they're asking for is how do we feel better? And that's feeling better is on the same vibrational frequency as stress. What we really need to realize is what stress is. So stress is a tension, and when it turns to stress, it means we have a negative relationship to the tension. So instead of, having this negative relationship to tension and calling it stress and wanting to run away from it, in essence, avoiding it and, doing all these feel-good activities, what we need to do is change our definition of stress. So I'm going to, instead of saying stress now, just talk about it as tension. And what tension is a life force. Tension is what, no matter what your belief system is, that's what created us here. And that's what our mission in life is. And essentially, our mother and father coming together was a tension that brought us here into this world. And, I'm not going to leave the secret until the end of how do you, go from stress to creativity. You need tension to get to creativity, because tension is the driving force. It's how the diamond comes into being. It's how the caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Over the centuries, many great thought leaders have been in a state of tension where they were unsettled with the status quo, with the current reality. They weren't in a feel-good place when they came up with something new, something grand. And it created, there needed to be a tension for them to get to that aha moment. So my stance on stress is that we need to change the definition of it, and we need to embrace tension, because tension, when it's mismanaged, turns into psychological tension, turning into stress. And when we want to manage the stress, we are resolving the tension, which is essentially our creative life force, which is where we go beyond a problem solution, where we go into creativity. So when I, talk to people, when I work with clients, we don't resolve tension. Tension is precious, and we learn how to live with tension and deal with tension. And that's really how we become powerful, because, right now people are very adverse to conflict, even though we have so much in the world. When somebody is going through something, the first thing we want to do is we want to make them feel better. We want to resolve their tension. When we have negative emotions, the first thing we want to do, we want to resolve our tension. So, some things society praises, like we put it into our work. So I think a lot of people have come into this thinking, I know how to use my stress. A society of workaholics, so they put that into there, but what they're doing is they're still repressing the stress. They're choosing not to look at it and putting that energy into something else. But so that's not what we're trying to do here. We are trying to be able to sit with tension, sit with it long enough until we get to that stage of creativity. So if there was something every person could learn to change the way the world is, to change their own life and their own mental well-being, it would be to master tension, and it would be the ability to be able to deal with conflict with integrity without resolving our tension. Because when we resolve our tension, we often do a lot of dysfunctional things. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could even be exercise, or anything that takes us away from the pain, you know. But when we don't sit with the pain, we go into suffering. And this kind of causes our whole stress epidemic. So now that we've rephrased the word stress, we've got tension. And tension is a really positive thing. Tension is, you know, if you know a little bit about alchemy and the alchemists, they were turning lead into gold. So tension is our lead, and we needed to turn it into gold. So the next step is about being human. Like, what's wrong with being human? Why do we want to rise above it? You know, why are we so interested in this superhuman? We've told ourselves, basically, you know, if you go a little bit back in history, it probably began with Newton in the Western world. And, you know, when the soul was left to the church and science, and Newton, they covered the material landscape for many reasons. You know, it was the time of the Inquisition, things like that. So they separated those two fields. So bringing us back into 2020, we have very much separated the physical and the soul and the superconscious. So the thinking mind and the superconscious mind. So we believe that, you know, we are the material. We believe that we are just what we can see. We believe that, you know, this table is solid. We believe, you know, we are just our current reality. Quantum physics has already, you know, disproved a lot of the Newtonian theory. There's a lot of research on it, but, you know, society is not yet up to date, and we're not yet practicing these things, even though we truly feel them. So we are already superhuman. It's just...
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
For 1 second.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to jump in is because someone's asked a question. I think it's relevant to the rest of your discussion. So people in the group, obviously entirely different backgrounds and understandings and philosophies. So someone has asked a question about vibrational frequency, and they would like to know more about what vibrational frequency is. And the reason that I think it's relevant is because I can see the path you're going down in terms of working with tension being around your own frequency. So if you can talk to what vibrational frequency actually is a little bit, and then keep heading down that path, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, semantics really dissects things, and it actually makes things confusing. So I use different words. Sometimes I'll use vibration. You can also call it an energy. So from a practical sense that you can experience in your body, when you are feeling stressed, if you close your eyes, you're actually feeling your cells vibrating. When you're feeling angry, the vibrational level changes, so it intensifies. When you go into depression, depression is actually anger over a long period of time, long-term powerlessness. It's even a lower frequency to that. So when I say vibrational frequency, it's just to use words to, I guess, explain a feeling that everyone has in their body. A feeling of a very low energetic space to a higher energetic space to an extremely high energy space. So when I talk about the vibrational frequency, if it doesn't resonate with you, just feel in your body when you're in different emotional states. So a vibrational frequency, you can call it a emotional space, and that's something that you've had experience with. So yeah, hopefully that explains the question. So when we're going from stress, that feeling of stress, you know, imagine it in your body, to creativity, we're changing the vibration of our cells, the energy of our body, how vibrant we feel from that low, draining energy space of stress to the higher frequency of creativity, where we're vibrant, where we're in high performance mode. So it's going from low performance to high performance.
Fantastic.
Hopefully that clarified.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So when we're being human, we're not noticing all these different states that our body is in. We're feeling ourselves in the material, and we're not really associated with our body. We're more associated with the external world. So being superhuman is no longer associating so much with the external world and thinking that we need to change the furniture around in the world or change people, move things to actually make a difference. It all begins with us and our emotional state or our vibrational state. And then we can go into creativity. So, you know, we are already superhuman. We're choosing to be on the frequency or the radio channel of human, and we can go superhuman in an instant. And if we have time at the end of this session, we can have an example of that. So it doesn't take long. Anyone can do it. We've basically unlearned how to do it. So then let's go into creativity. Creativity is not just about art. It's not about, you know, anything crazy. It's not for the Picassos of this world. Creativity is really making the connections that weren't previously there before. It's creating something out of nothing. The geniuses in history that we admire are people who just created something from a different level of thinking than the status quo. You know, it was something completely different, something completely wow. I love art, and a lot of people, you know, are not into abstract art, and the whole philosophy of why artists like Picasso, you know, painted something that could look like, you know, someone's child drew it, why they're so highly valued is that they created a new concept that previously wasn't there before. And going into a state of creativity, we can do that every day in our life. If we're in our human state, all we see is our current reality. What's here, you know, my boss, my family, this is the situation, these are the circumstances. So basically we're in our mind. You know, I call the mind a prison. So we're trying to make our life comfortable in the prison. When we're in a human state, when we're in a state of stress, where, you know, maybe if we're in a prison, we can join a gang, you know, we can do some extra jobs, get a bit of money. We are trying to deal with our circumstances. That's stress. That's a low vibrational, it's a low emotional state. What I teach people to do is to realize that they have a choice to stay in the prison, or they can actually get out of the prison. So creativity is rising above the circumstances of, you know, do I join a gang? How do I make do? It's rising above that to realize that we have a choice and to see outside of the material world, of our current circumstances and reality, to go outside of, you know, problem solution mode, to rise above it. When we're in a very high energy space, that's when we're in peak performance. Our mind is clear, we're fully relaxed, and there we get to our real answers. And that could be anything. That could be, you know, just being very present in our day-to-day life, so that when we're walking, we choose to go right instead of left, and that's where we meet our life partner, just because we're in that state. It's doing a very quick turn, you know, to prevent ourselves from being in an accident. It's, you know, it is coming up with that amazing business idea that isn't from pros and cons, or, you know, what the market is asking for, from blueprints of what other people are doing, but, you know, from a space of knowing, you know, that's true creativity. Because all the geniuses of this world, they never learned from anyone else. What they came up was unique, you know. So where did that come from? It didn't come from past experience. It didn't come from learning from anyone. Yes, maybe obviously they learned, you know, mathematics, they learn how to read it. There are things that we need to learn in our cognitive minds, in our thinking minds. But where we get our genius from, where we become superhuman, is from creativity. And that's, you know, making connections that weren't previously there before. And, you know, if anyone has any questions, we can speak to that. Otherwise, we could go straight into an exercise and maybe get, you know, people can have an experience of
what we might do is
being superhuman.
Get you to keep going through the experience. But at the same time, anyone who's either if you're on the Zoom chat, any questions that you've got, feel free to enter as you go along. We might not answer all of them until the end, but drop them in so that as you're thinking about them, you can drop them in. And anyone who is on the Facebook Live inside the Superhuman Summit, feel free to just drop your questions into the feed and we'll make sure that they're addressed by the end. So go ahead, Sasha, with your practical experience. That would be great.
Yeah. So it'll be if somebody has something that they're feeling stressed about. So, if it could be a conflict that's going on for them now, maybe a charge. If someone can volunteer, then I could talk them through the experience, and anyone who listens or who's listening later, they can take themselves through it so that everyone can have this experience. And it's a tool that it's very quick. It takes you from, the stress, the human state, from the problem into a higher creative experience where you get the real antidote.
Okay, anyone got a problem that they want to drop into the message panel? Otherwise, I've got one I can give you, but I'd rather hear someone else.
So if it's a conflict that involves other people, just for the example, that's probably the best one. But really, you can do this on anything. It could be an internal conflict. Yeah.
Let's use, only because no one else has jumped in, let's use the example of families being at home during lockdown and partners spending a lot of time together and realizing that they don't feel like they love each other very much during that time. So let's use that example.
Okay. Is that someone's specific example? Because obviously
it's just an example.
Plays out differently for everyone.
It's any example, just a fictional one that I've come up with.
Yep. Okay. So I think everyone can relate to this in one way or another. I'm going to go very general on this because we're going to go into a super conscious state, rise above thoughts and feelings. So this usually is done unique to every scenario, but I'm going to do it for the mass consciousness, for the majority, the general of what people are going through. And we're going to come up with a higher antidote for this one. Okay, so the first step, I'm going to get everyone to name their conflict, name their stress, the scenario. You could write this down, you could speak it, whichever way is easier. And I'll just get you to close your eyes. So if you close your eyes, just really feel into this issue. Really feel into, what the emotional state is like when you're, feeling tense with your partner, when arguments are coming up, are you feeling suffocated in the house? Really visualize and take yourself into that scenario. Don't be afraid to go deep. Really feel into it. Get those cells in your body vibrating on that energy, on that level. What is the emotion? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it suffocation? I know for me, it's suffocation. So whatever that is for you, really take yourself there. Feel it, visualize it. Be with that conflict, because remember what I said earlier about stress. Our solution to get out of stress is to avoid it and make ourselves feel better. So have the courage here to really feel into this. So once you're there, I'm going to have you just imagine, keep your eyes closed and imagine yourself in the scenario. Imagine yourself rising outside of your body and as if you're a bright ball of light. You could be soul, you could be spirit, and you could just be imagination, and you're looking at yourself, your scenario, your partner, the home, whatever it is, you're looking at it from a bird's eye view. You're fully looking at the scenario. So imagine yourself no longer in it, but just looking at it like you would look at a TV show or a fly on the wall. And take yourself into your perspective first, and then take yourself into all the other characters in the room. It could be your partner, your children, and really be with this, not from your perspective, but from a third party's perspective. Really be with this scenario. So what is this scenario for you? I'm going to tune into the collective and just feel into the collective scenario of the situation. Okay, so now you're seeing each of the perspectives. You've risen above the charge. You've risen above the current reality, above the human element, the thoughts and feelings, from an objective place. Now, say your truth or write your truth down. What is the truth of the situation? This is where it takes willpower, because we don't always want to see the perspective from the other person, from ourselves. So we really need to speak this or write this down. And what I'm getting on a collective, when I've tuned in intuitively to the situation, on a collective, what a lot of people are going through is that they've had a lot of, before we've been in this situation, they've had time to escape their projections of their partner, of themselves. They've, if they felt too tense, what they would do is, they would go to work, they would go for a jog, they would focus on other things. And there's a lot of things that haven't been dealt with that are now coming out. It's like, the part of the detox, the really yucky part of the detox, the things that people didn't want to look at for a long time, that they've distracted themselves from out of fear of, what will this mean if I don't enjoy my partner anymore? What does this mean if my partner actually finds out what I do, in the morning while they're usually at work? What does this mean? So all these things that we've not wanted to deal with, this level of intimacy that we never wanted to deal with, we're forced to deal with this now. So it's creating a lot of tension for fear of, our layers of our mask to come off. So that's what I'm getting on a collective. It might be different from you. So once you're there, once you know the truth of the situation, go back into the situation and closing your eyes again, rising above your thoughts and feelings, seeing the situation for what it is. Notice what is the truth of the situation. What is the bridge from the current reality, from the stress, from the conflict, to the truth of the scenario? What is the bridge? What is the not the solution, but what is the antidote? How do you rise above it? And really be in this. Don't have any expectations. Intuition is the first thing you get before you cover up with logic. So the first thing you get, whether it comes in a symbol or a feeling, write it down. What is the antidote? What is the, how do you get yourself out of this current reality when you can't move, when you can't go anywhere, where you can't change your circumstances? What is the energy? So I'm going to go into it and get it for the collective. And if you're doing this exercise, please write it down or see what you're getting for yourself. So as a collective, our intimate relationships, our partnerships, relationships, our family, our closest relationships, the tension that it's causing, the thing that we want to do is we want to run away. We want to get out. We can't breathe. And if we can't get away, we can't leave our house. We want to fight. We want to fight it. Because what are we defending? We're defending our true self. We're defending being vulnerable and taking away our layers and really the person seeing us for who we are, because, we don't want to be seen as vulnerable, as weak. We'd rather fight. We want to run away. So on a collective level, the antidote to this stress is to be vulnerable with that person, to allow it to fall away, allow the people, allow our partner, our kids to see us not being strong, to, say what it is that what we fear, what we're scared of. What about this situation scares us? We don't have to put on our work outfit, our corporate suit, our leader hat. We just need to be vulnerable. And this is going to resolve a lot of the tension in a very functional way, because it's going to create more intimacy, so that we don't feel that the people in our house, we need to create space for them. we will open up more space and, and clear that energy of tension, clear that tension in a functional way, where we're going to get to a creative place where we can create what we want from this scenario, by taking off the layers, by being vulnerable, by saying what we fear, and just letting go, something that we probably haven't been able to do for a while. So that's the process. You feel into the charge, you identify what it is, you see it, you rise above the charge, you step outside of your thoughts and feelings, you see the truth, and then you choose to act on the truth. So now that we know this, we need to use our willpower to, when we feel like we're defensive, when we feel like we want to put on our mask, our armor, we let it go, we drop it. And that's the process.
So, Sasha, this seems like that it is a process or a method that you could use very easily almost wherever you are, and in relation to any kind of tension that you might be experiencing in your world. Is that right? Is it meant to be like a portable, easy to access?
Yeah, so this is the quickest and the simplest process that I have in terms of steps. And it's really profound. Practice this on a few scenarios. Some of the things that you get may seem crazy, and you might have a lot of resistance, because we always know the truth. It's just our ego or our preconceived notions, our fears, stop us from seeing it. But it's very easy to go into, and you'll get the answer straight away. The challenge is to use the willpower to act on it when the time is there.
Fantastic. As you're going through and listening to Sasha, if you have any questions for her, please go ahead and pop them in. I'm just going to read a comment from Claire saying there's a process for tapping in. Yeah, the process is for tapping into the pause or the gap that's there between the stimulus and the response. Yeah, that's the trick to everything, Claire.
Yeah, so when we're in reaction, reaction is like, it's just not the ally of mastery. So, if one thing we can do is create a gap between what's happening and our reaction, we've mastered life. And everything else is just, a decorative way of doing it. But yeah, if we can create that gap, and just to really see what's going on, it'll stop us from creating a lot of conflicts, unnecessary conflicts in our existence.
That's right. And I think often when you do take the pause and you create that gap, that enables you to look at a whole other range of tools that you might have in your toolkit that you would have forgotten and wouldn't been there if you had been reactive as opposed to responsive. So the ability to wait and choose your outcome gives you access to so much of a different range of opportunities of how something might turn out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really, for a lot of this work, whether it's mindset, consciousness work, high level performance, being superhuman, it's about awareness. Because if we don't know where we are in the moment, we can't get to where we want to be. So if we have a vision, we know we want to have a wonderful relationship, we want a successful business, we just want to be a happier person. If we don't know where we are right now, if we don't have the awareness that we're even in stress, which a lot of people don't, the people who are under the most stress often don't even, they're desensitized to it. They don't know where they are. So if you don't know that you're in Sydney, you can't get to Paris. How are you going to have the roadmap? So yeah, it really all comes down to self-awareness and that continuous practice. If it's meditation for you, if it's a different modality, religion, all roads lead back to self-awareness, so we can get from our current reality to where we want to be.
So if someone, let me ask a question around that. If someone actually doesn't know and understand and appreciate the level of stress they're actually experiencing, so everyone else around them can see it and the person lives and breathes the stress, but they don't get it because they're so in it that they can't see it, what can you do as someone who is looking on, wanting to support that person? What can you actually do to support that person?
It's a really good question. I get a lot of partners ask this. You know, it's really common, I think, in Australia, in America, sort of the high achiever, the breadwinner, the man. You know, obviously it can happen in women, but in our society, it's really common with men, sort of between the age of 40 and 60. There's a lot of, you know, what people think is anxiety, depression, these kinds of things that they can't express. It's chronic long-term stress where it creates a numbness. So there's a lack of emotion, there's a lack of connection. What a partner can do, often it doesn't help if you push that person, because that alpha male or that alpha personality is very resistant to dealing with their feelings, with being told what to do. What I would suggest is allow the breakdown, allow the worst to happen, because what this person isn't doing, they're trying to control everything in their environment. They are holding on so tightly, which often does lead to a heart attack, or, you know, like the A-type, you know, it's very commonly that person is very fit, they're very strong, and out of nowhere, there could be a health issue, there could be a business breakdown. There's almost nothing you can do if you're the person looking on, except for let them break down. Let them come to them, you know, let them come to it themselves, because self-awareness isn't about someone else having awareness of you. It's awareness of the self. So there's nothing you can really do for another person, but hold the space for them when that happens. And I would say if you are in a relationship, you're never in a relationship just like that because you found the person by accident. Yes, you may seem very different on the surface, you know, opposites do attract, but there is something in you that reflects what this person is going through. And the best thing to do is allow that person to do that thing, allow them to crash, see what that thing is in you, see where that non-feeling is in you, see where that stress is in you. You know, what is it that you're trying to avoid? You might be the homemaker, you might, you know, cry at your kids throwing something, whereas your partner never shows emotions. But where is that space in you where you don't want to be vulnerable, where you want to control everything? And even you wanting to help your partner is an element of control. So I would say let them do their thing, let them break down, let them come to it. Hold the intention for them, hold the space, and look at what's in you, because we can't change the world by protesting. We can't change the world by fighting, going against them. We can't change someone else, you know, by grabbing them and telling them. I know, you know, the only way you learn something, even if you're resonating with anything that I'm saying, it's because you've experienced it, because you've felt it. You know, semantics, words, they don't really teach. The person has to experience it. So I would say, go in with you, find that thing in you where it's on the same energy as your partner, where you don't let go of control, where you feel stressed, and, you know, allow that, work through that, use this process, and you'll be amazed the changes that you'll see in the other person by just working through it yourself.
Another question that I have is, and we're just kind of in the last 5 minutes or so before we're wrapping up for a series of questions. So any questions that you'd like to put in the chat box, go ahead and do that. Oh, I should say in the Q&A box rather than the chat box. It just struck me with the title of your talk, are all forms of creativity equal in terms of dealing with stress, or is there some form of creativity that's more effective?
Is there some, say that again?
If you think of creativity, there's so many different things that come to my mind and ways we can be creative. Yep. Are all of those ways useful, or are there some ways that are more effective?
Yeah, so I guess once again, semantics, creativity is creating something out of nothing. It's making connections that weren't previously made before. So we can't do that. We can't create anything superhuman or really create. Like, creativity is creating something. It's not regurgitating something someone has done. It's not, you know, it's creating your own artwork or coming up with your own idea or your own insight. It's not learning anything old. It's being in the present moment. It's being aware, self-aware enough and present enough where you gather the obvious insights, the obvious information where you can't get from past experience. So being creative isn't, doing anything creative. It's not being on the same level as the stress. It's not trying to fix the stress. It's not trying to work out the problem. It's rising above it, just like we rise above the charge. And it can be different for every person. For you, when you rise above the charge of, maybe it could be a partnership conflict that you're having at work, if you're stuck in that, if you're trying to figure out how do I fix this? How do I work on the other person? Pros and cons. When you're in that logical mind, you might solve it for a bit, but at the core, it's still there. So when you use that technique of rising above the thoughts and feelings, seeing it from a third party, you might get for yourself that your antidote is dancing. You may love dancing, and it doesn't make sense why you going to do dance classes or dancing in your living room is going to solve that partnership problem that you're having at work. It doesn't make sense. From our thinking mind, it doesn't make sense, but it's creative. It's out of nowhere. It's in the moment, it's obvious, it's, and that's the solution. So that's what real creativity is. It's intuition. It's things that aren't logical, because intuition is the first thing we get before we cover up with logic. All of our logic is basically past experience that we regurgitate. So when we regurgitate past experience, we just create more of the same. So trying to fix that problem from from past experience just leads to more of the same. So if we can rise above it and do something that actually makes no sense, that's often the solution.
Yeah, I love
so
that.
you just hopefully that makes sense, because you have to experience it to really know it, and you have to see how it affects something in your life, and then you're like, that's it. So it's very experiential.
Yeah, I think, doing something that makes no sense to me makes so much sense, particularly in the times that we're in at the moment, because it was Einstein that said the same kind of thinking that creates the problem is not going to present any kind of resolution. And I think that's what we're dealing with today with our current circumstances, is a need to be perceptive, a need to rise above, a need to put ourselves in a different place in relation to, and our comfort level with dealing with and connecting with and being with ambiguity has to be higher than it's ever been before in these times. And so I think that's such a beautiful thing that you've just suggested about doing something that makes absolute no sense. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with people? There's a couple of questions that people have asked, but they've sort of said that you've answered them as we've gone along. Someone said, made a comment, which is definitely true about, it's what we were talking about earlier. We can't change the world by protesting. And I think, that what that talks to for me is that part of our perspective shift and change that you're referring to requires us as humans to know how to surrender, and then surrender some more, and then surrender some more. And sometimes it's us being really good at surrendering that can give us the perspective shift that we're looking for. Are
100%. I mean,
no, sorry, you go.
Yeah. If you look at the world now, the craziness, I don't think there's one person that can make logical sense of anything. There's all these perspectives, and no one really knows for sure what it is, why it happened, what the motivation is. And if you notice yourself, when you get into that thinking space, your energy levels, your vibrational frequency, your thinking mind, it goes into stress, because our brain only absorbs 2,000 bits of information. That's what our mind can absorb. But our brain, our whole consciousness, our subconscious, all these levels, it can take in 400 billion bits of information. So we are always limited. It's a very convenient function. It's the reptilian brain where it's fight or flight mode. That's where we're living from. So being superhuman is going beyond our 2000 bits, you know, rising above what we can see, our, you know, information, our educated information, and rising above that. And we stay in that logic, in the information that we have, out of fear. So when we have a resistance to rising above it, you know, doing something silly that doesn't make sense, we're in our fear, we're in defense, you know, we're in protest. And that just creates more protests, you know, the fight against terrorism, that's old days now. Now it's the fight against COVID, the fight against cancer, all these types of things. That against into creativity, making connections that weren't previously there before, and going into that superhuman space where it's intuition, it's outside of, you know, what was previously there. It's truly a genius space.
Fantastic. And do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to wrap up your session, or for people to be able to go home with, to, you know, leave resonating in their heads?
Yeah. So this whole session was about stress, and stress is something, you know, we're going to see more and more as time goes on, and it's going to be prevalent. So what I would recommend people to do is stress or conflict or that tension is an opportunity for you to be powerful. So don't resolve it. Don't try and make yourself feel better. Don't try and move away from it. Don't distract yourself from it. Learn and practice to be with conflict, to be with stress. Sit with it and notice the awareness that comes through, because that's your place where you gain real personal power, when you can sit with conflict, your own conflict, and then you can sit with the conflict of another person, and then from there maybe you can sit with the conflict of the world. So yeah, use this time, like embrace the uncomfortable feelings, the negative feelings, embrace it. Don't make meaning of it. Don't try and do anything about it. Sit with it, and you will be amazed what wisdom that you will get from the creative space if you just sit with it.
Fantastic.
So I hope that people are able to embrace that, as yucky as it may feel sometimes.
I really love what you've been presenting, and I really liked that practical session in the middle that we can use to step by step really look at shifting our perspective, because that can be accessed by us at any point in time, anywhere, in any situation. So it's very portable and useful as a tool. So thank you so much. What's the best way for people to be able to contact you? We've already put your a URL of yours in the start of the feed, but do you prefer people to contact you on Facebook or LinkedIn, or?
I prefer LinkedIn. So that's where I have a lot of conversations. I'm also offering some quick sessions for anyone who's interested for private coaching. It will give them some insights into them. So LinkedIn is the place for that, so to connect with me.
Where they find you. Perfect.
Yep. So that's Sasha Fedorovsky, Mindset Coach. I also have a lot of content on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is _mind_daily. So sorry, the Mindset Daily. So _mindset_daily. So I have a lot of videos there that cover these kinds of topics. You can get an idea of what this is all about. There's some practical tools.
Sasha, feel free just to jump into the Superhuman, to the Summit group on Facebook, and just put in all those details, your LinkedIn and your Instagram handle and everything like that. Feel free to pop it in there. That way everyone can see it.
Yeah. Perfect. So,
and you're in the
chat with me, Instagram.
And you're going to be in that Superhuman Summit group. So if people have a question, they can come back and circle back and find you that way. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Sure. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your very practical tips for us today. We hugely appreciate it. And for those of you online, you can stick around in, it's not right now, but I think it's in a couple of hours time. You can check on our website, the Human Power website. The next speaker coming up is Andrew Hughes, and he's a fantastic speaker, and he's won in 1 hour's time. Thanks, AJ. And thanks so much again, Sasha, because I appreciate your time and energy and being part of our Superhuman Summit.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Thanks for having me. And yeah, happy to chat to anybody afterwards.
Fantastic. All right. See you, everybody.
Bye.